course, I'm showing you the enterprise version with all the stuff included that is possible. So let's get things started. For all the Botmock users, you might be, this user interface here is pretty common for you. For me, as I'm a developer, or in the meanwhile more a management guy, this was pretty easy to learn how to design here a conversational experience. You just hit these arrows here, and I want to define my first welcome intent. Therefore, I mark here this connection and say, let's add a new intent. As mentioned, this will be a welcome intent, and we will add some training phrases for it, like hi, howdy, let's go for hello, hello, hi. So just a short list. Doing, maybe what else did I have here? Greetings, long time no see. Yeah, and then it should be enough. So let's add greetings and also the long time no see. And then we save the whole thing, and Zoom is tricking me a bit with this bar, but I can move it up here. Yeah, so then we have an intent here. I give this connection also a label to make it easier to identify. And for this welcome intent, let's say our chatbot should always reply with something like, hey, buddy. So very easy conversation design. But for showing the export and import, this will be enough. And as I have mentioned in the beginning, there should be two more intents covered. One will be, let's call it who am I, where the bot introduces himself. So I add a new who am I intent here. Again, with some training phrases, let's say, who are you, and introduce yourself. And what else did I have here in my preparation? What's your name? That's a good one. Yeah, so another pretty easy, straightforward intent. Let's also label this connection and call it who am I? And then a third one, and then my conversation design is already done. So once again, and here we go for a joke intent to have some nerd or developer jokes included. So let's call this a joke intent, and let's say we go for training phrases like fun jokes or tell me joke should be enough for the moment. We label again the whole thing with joke, and our chatbot should tell us here a nice joke. Typically nerdy one. Yeah, let's go for why is 6 afraid of 7, and the answer is because 7, 8, 9. I know it's not that funny, but it's not about the joke here, guys. Oh, and I forgot for the who am I intent to define what will be the bot reply. So he should reply with, let's say, I am the Botmock webinar bot. That should be it. Yeah. Of course, Botmock offers here so much more options. Yeah, you could design here way much more complex stuff, include carousels, cards, images. All these things are implemented. You can export it from here and import it into Botium Box, but it would just take me here too long to show all these things. For the moment being, this should be it. So after we have defined this conversation, now I want to export it to Google Dialogflow, and therefore what Botmock does is they are offering a Dialogflow exporter for those guys who haven't seen it before. So it's a Git repo. So what you have to do is you point your browser to this repo. You copy here the URL to clone, and then you just do in your terminal, in my case, in my Git folder, a git clone with this URL, and you will get the latest repo. I did already clone this repo yesterday, so I'm not going to do it again. But if you call this command, you will exactly end up in this Botmock Dialogflow export folder. So if we go inside here, then we can see that the repo was cloned, and there is one important file that we cannot see here, but I can show you if we go directly into the folder and I show you the hidden files. So it's about this .env file. Inside you will find the project ID of this Botmock project. You will find your personal token to download the stuff and so on. I'm not going to open this file because I don't want to share my credentials with you, but I'm going to show you where you can get this data. So here from the Botmock settings, you go to API info, and you can just hit this button here, and all this data necessary will be copied to your clipboard. You paste it in exactly this .env file, and that's it. Then you are more or less ready to export this conversation design from Botmock to Dialogflow, and how you can do it, I will show you now. So as mentioned before, requirement here is to have Node installed. For the Botmock import, you will need Node bigger version 12. I think I have version 14 or something. Oh, this was a typo. I have version 14.15, yeah. Yeah, first thing you do after cloning the repo is an npm install to fetch all these requirements needed. I did this also yesterday, so I can directly go here for an npm start, and what happens now is that Botmock will export the designed conversation for the import in Dialogflow. So if we have a look here in this folder, we can see that in the output directory, there was an upload folder generated, and inside we already see the agent, we see entities intents, and the package.json file. So to get this now into Dialogflow, I just zip this whole thing into an upload.zip, that's okay, and import it to Dialogflow. In Dialogflow, I've created a new agent. Go to the settings. There is an export import function. I use restore from zip. I could drag and drop the file here or just select it like this. So I have to go to my Git folder, Dialogflow export output, and here is our upload.zip file. I have to say restore here, and then we should get everything important here. So hitting the done, going back to intents, we should see here in the agent exactly the joke, the welcome intent, the who am I. If we go into the joke, we see all the training phrases, fun jokes, tell me a joke, and we also see our not so funny, but maybe for some it is, answer of the chatbot. And the cool thing is Dialogflow also comes with this out-of-the-box integration, so we can turn on, I already did it, a web demo of it. So this guy we can later on test end-to-end. So if I ask here, tell me a joke, he should already reply with why is 6 afraid of 7. Yeah, easy as that. So you have seen how easy it is now to export this designed conversation from Botmock to Dialogflow. And now the next step is to import the Botmock project into Botium Box, yeah, because of course it would be cool to automatically generate out of these intents, out of these training phrases, out of the expected answers, immediately test sets and test cases, and to be in the position to run them easily without a lot of efforts. And what we did is, in setting up this partnership in the last weeks, is more or less creating the same user experience for that Botmock users are already used to. So also we launched an open source Git repo for our import. It's this URL here. So if we open this, you find here the Botium exporter Botmock, same story. You copy the repo URL, you go this project, I do a git clone with this URL and so on. Also here, I did this before in the preparation, so the repo is already there on my local drive. So if I cd into it, it's the Botium -exporter Botmock. So this is what you should have. Also here we have an output folder that is empty right now, and also here we are using this .env file. So it's exactly the same file as we were using before in the Botmock Dialogflow exporter. So you can just copy paste it here and that's it. Yeah, and then it's the same story. Do an npm start and our exporter will more or less prepare everything for the import of the conversation model into Botium Box. Yeah, this is not so interesting for us, but going back into the folder, we see that now this txt folder was generated with 3 conversation files in it and 3 utterance lists. And these are exactly the resources that Botium Box is using to run automated tests. So same user experience here. You create a zip file out of this, and maybe I rename the zip file because Botium will take the name as the tested name when we import it. Of course, you can change the name afterwards, but it's just nicer to do it up front. So let's call it Botmock webinar. And now we are coming for the first time to Botium Box. So this is the dashboard of our test automation suite or framework or environment, however you want to call it. And the cool thing is you now just go to our test sets menu. There is also a drop area. You take this generated zip, you paste it here, and that's it. Yeah. So if we go to test cases, you see here 3 conversation files. You see all the utterances here with all the training data for the joke intent, for the welcome intent, for the who am I intent, and so on. And it's getting even cooler. So we have exported more or less all the data from Botmock. We have it now inside Botium Box, and we are just 1 minute away from running automated tests based on all this data. Therefore, you can use our start menu, go for basic regression testing. We give this whole project a name. Let's call it like the test set Botmock webinar, maybe with a counter. And then I choose the chatbot behind Botmock webinar. I hit next. I select the test set we have imported. Remember, I called it Botmock webinar. I hit next. We want to create automatically CI/CD pipeline integration. So let's hit save and start testing. And all the magic is already happening in the background. So what Botium Box does right now is starting test session jobs that will execute the tests in the background. And in a few seconds, we should have our first results. So there we go. So what you can see here, that for every intent, remember there was the welcome intent, there was the who am I intent, and the joke intent, Botium Box was running tests based on the exported Botmock project. Yeah. So we were sending hi, we got back hey buddy, we were detecting the welcome intent. We sent howdy, we got back hey buddy, and so on. So you can see we are doing this or creating these tests for all the utterances or all the training data based on one intent. And this is now a very small conversation model that we have here behind, but you see it already ends up in these 13 test cases. Yeah. So usually we have here in Botmock bigger projects. So just to show you what our developers did when they created the exporter. So if I go to Atti's project here, this is more practical maybe. So of course these models are bigger and having stuff like cards, images, carousels, and so on inside. This will already end up here in Botium Box after the import in a few hundred test cases. Yeah? And this was the main purpose, yeah, to take away the efforts of reproducing the conversation models in kind of test sets and test cases here in Botium Box, and to have something that you can immediately start and run out of the box. Yeah? It's getting even cooler, yeah, because remember when I went through our quick start, I had the toggle to create CI/CD pipeline integration on. So when I go now to test projects and search for the newly created Botmock webinar 01, and I go to our build server integration tab, then you can see here that Botium Box automatically generated a webhook for this whole project. Meaning that after these 5 minutes of exporting your Botmock project and importing it here into Botium Box, we have an entire test set with a lot of conversations inside, with all the training data more or less covered. And we have full pipeline integration, meaning that you can take this webhook here and integrate it into your CI/CD pipeline. And whenever your pipeline calls this webhook, Botium Box will execute the tests as you have seen it before. Yeah? So from zero to have fully integrated test automation for conversational AI, it just takes you a few minutes. And well, this is the point where I can switch to all the cool stuff you can else do with Botium Box. So this is the starting point. You have now imported your Botmock project, and from now on, you can go for NLP performance testing, for real end-to-end testing, for security testing, for all this stuff that we are offering. Maybe we could also test against this guy here, meaning against the real user interface. I can also show you this. Therefore, we can use end-to-end testing, and maybe at this point, we also want to enrich the test data a bit. So therefore, I show you another very too easy use feature, how to compose tests. So if I search here for our Dialogflow based webinar bot, I can start more or less a live chat session with this guy to compose new tests. So as you see, I'm connected to this chatbot, and I can now have a simple conversation with him. Yeah? So remember, if I say howdy, according to the training data, he should reply with hey buddy, and he does. Yeah? Or if I say, who are you? He should reply with I'm the Botmock Botium webinar bot. Or our third intent was tell me a joke. And we should get our y is 6 afraid of 7. Yeah? So following this principle here, you could have a conversation as long as you want, and at the end you just say save the whole thing as a new test set or test case. Yeah? So let's call this Botmock webinar 03. I'm not sure if I used 02 already. The cool thing is, if we go now to test sets and search for exactly this one, we can see that Botium Box once again has done the magic for us in the background. Yeah, so out of this live chat, there were test sets and test cases created. Yeah, this is our visual test case editor, is used a lot by conversation designers, because also here you see kind of a flow going from left to the right. We have behind Botium script, there's this used a lot by chatbot developers to write tests, and here you can see how these tests would look like scripted. Yeah, there's simply a me tag. This means we are going to send this text to the bot, and there's a bot tag. This means we are taking this response here for the assertion. Yeah, and yeah, it's easy as that. And what I mainly wanted to show you is end-to-end testing before. Yeah, so we could now select here end-to-end testing and not regression testing. We once again give this thing a name, 5 whatever. I choose our Botmock webinar chatbot, hit next. I select our newly generated test set from the live chat, which we call Botmock webinar 03. I hit next. And now in the third step, as we are testing end to end, I have the option to tell Botium to run the tests, for example, against the browser farm, something like latest Chrome on desktop or something. This would test on the latest 10 Chrome browser versions on various desktop systems, meaning like on Mac OS X, on Windows, on Linux, and so on. Yeah? Or for the sake of easiness, I will go now for a headless Chrome that is included here in Botium Box. And once again, I just hit save and start testing, and Botium is doing the rest for me in the background. Yeah. Also here, after a few seconds, we will get some test results, and in this case, we will see the tests have been running end-to-end when they are finished. So here we can already see it. This was the conversation, and by the added screenshot, we can see the tests were really running against this Dialogflow bot integration here end-to-end. So also this pretty typically pretty easy to make use case in Botium. What else can you do? As we have a very big user base out there, we are very community driven, so we get a lot of feedback, a lot of feature requests, and what is coming up lately a lot is the whole non-functional testing, for example. Yeah? So stuff like performance testing. And therefore, I can show you how, or the best way to explain is to have a look in a typical performance test result. So in this case, you can see we were doing stress testing, for example, by increasing here the load that we are sending against some conversational AI step by step, and measuring at the same time the response times, or the failed convo rate, or a convo processing delay. And these are serious tests. So we are simulating here 40,000 users in parallel, for example. So this is pretty much. Or some other stuff that is coming up in case of non-functional latently a lot is the whole security testing that comes out of the box with our product. Yeah, so if we have a look here in latest security tests, so this is a pretty easy conversation we were sending to a chatbot, just saying hello and asserting for hi, how are you? But if you have a look on our security scan tab here in the results, you can see that a lot of stuff was detected. Yeah, and it's getting even cooler. Botium Box tells you what is the problem, gives you all the information, and in addition to that, we are even generating a possible solution. And in most cases, we can also add here links where you find descriptions how to solve this stuff. By the way, this security testing is based on the ZTTech proxy provided by OWASP. For those who don't know these guys, they are more or less defining the security standards out there. So also this is coming all out of the box with Botium as a QA engineer or chatbot developer, or I don't know, business analyst. You don't have to have security testing skills. All this stuff comes here out of the box. Yeah, and then maybe the last thing I'm going to show you, because it's mainly about our Botmock partnership and not about doing here a lot of marketing for us, but as it is one of the major or main features of our Botium Box, I'm going to show you also our NLP score or NLP performance testing. Also, this was mainly coming by requests from our big community. We started everything based on conversational flow testing, as you have seen it in the demo now. But of course, you also want to know about the health state of your AI, and this is what Botium Coach is telling you. Yeah? So as you can see here, we have a lot of statistical data here, a lot of maths, a lot about the stuff that is behind your AI engine. Yeah? So you get informations like, of course, in an attention box in the red one, you see the big issues like the intent prediction for one utterance is starting to fail. You click on it, you get the details. You see here the confidence is pretty low. So all this stuff is coming in Botium Box. We are showing you intent confidence distributions. We are showing you risks for entities and intents. So here it's mainly about the precision of your chatbot. We are showing you deviation risks for entities and confidences and stuff like that. Yeah, we have auto-generated suggestions how to fix things. We have a full overview of your training progress included. We have mismatch probability risks. We have a confusion matrix, an entire one. By the way, you can collapse our menu here to see more data. So as a QA engineer, it's pretty clear. There is a red box. Red is always bad in testing. You hit the button, you see, okay, for the utterance, what languages can you use? The expected intent was this one, the different one, and most probably this went wrong because the picture confidence is correct. So this is the stuff we are showing our users here. Of course, you need some data science knowledge in the background to do the interpretation. Yeah, I would say that's it from my side. I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover. I have showed you how to design here a conversation in Botmock. We have seen how to export and import it in Dialogflow. I've showed you then afterwards how to import it in Botium Box again and how to run your first tests automated. So,
well, thank you so much, Christoph. That was wonderful. It was so great to see everything from start to finish. We had a couple people in the chat ask if we could maybe get a bit of a high level recap of every step that you did. So sort of walking pretty slowly through start to finish. And I think after that, we may have some more specific questions, possibly on certain steps in there. So for any attendees, if you're watching this, you can also feel free to raise your hand. there's like a little hand icon that will appear next to your name, and then I can actually turn on your mic if you want to follow up directly with a question that you have for Christoph. One other thing, Christoph, before you do that, if you're willing to, I think a couple people are asking, or it seems like a couple people might be interested in getting even a personalized sort of walkthrough of the platform so they can ask questions with you one-on-one. So anyone attending, if you do want like a demo with the Botium team, feel free to shout that out in the chat or privately message me or any of the Botium panelists, and obviously we're happy to set that up for you.
Yeah, so maybe at here, for those guys who want to have a one-on-one with me on our website, botium.ai, you have, if you scroll down, the link book a demo. This one is more or less directly connected with my calendar, so you could just choose a date and a time that fits for you and book a session with me. So I'm very happy to talk to you guys. As far as I understood, Brielle, I should go through the main steps once again on a very high level. I'm trying to do this now and sum it up. So coming back to the Botmock platform and going into my own example that I call Botmock webinar test. So here I designed the conversational experience for a chatbot that should be later on implemented using Dialogflow. This guy should know three very basic intents: a welcome intent, where we added some training phrases. You can see it here: hi, howdy, hello, hello, hi, how are you doing, and so on. And if, I think the bar is again bothering me, yes. And if a user ask a chatbot exactly these training phrases, we should reply with "Hey buddy." So this was the first basic intent, and then I added two other ones. One was a pretty dumb joke. Why is 6 afraid of 7? The bot answers with because 7, 8, 9. The training phrases are fun jokes, tell me a joke. And the third one was more or less a who am I, where you can ask the bot, who are you, introduce yourself, and the bot replies with I am the Botium webinar bot. So this was more or less the basic conversation design. And the next step I did was using the Dialogflow export of Botmock to export this project for the import later on in Dialogflow. And therefore, I went here to the GitHub repo of the Botmock user for the Dialogflow export. I cloned this repo, just doing a git clone in my terminal. And then we end up, or if I see the out, we end up having here this Botmock Dialogflow export folder. If you open this folder for the first time, then you will be missing a very important file. It's this .env file here. This is more or less to set up the connection to the project in Botmock, and I have shown you how to get the necessary stuff that has to be placed in this file. You go here into the settings of Botmock, you go to the API information, you hit this copy.env file for API usage button, and the content of this .env file is more or less in your clipboard, meaning that you can create a new file. I have the files here and paste the stuff there. I'm not showing you the files because it has my private keys and tokens inside, so this shouldn't be live on YouTube. And then I imported the Botmock project into Dialogflow. So therefore, I went to Dialogflow. I already created here yesterday a Botmock webinar agent. I went here to the settings, and in the settings, there is an export and import tab, and I said restore from zip. And therefore, I have to take our exported Botmock project, and this step I missed. So after creating the .env file, you have to be in this Botmock Dialogflow export folder where the .env file is also placed, and do an npm start. So this will export the designed conversation model and place the stuff in the output folder of this project. So if we open this folder and go to output, we can see that this upload folder and webbook holder was generated. Inside there's an agent.json file. This is used by Dialogflow or needed by Dialogflow. We have the entities exported, we have intent exported, and there's a package.json file. And what I did next is I compressed this upload folder in the zip file, because this is what I need for the import in Dialogflow. So coming back to Dialogflow, in the settings to import and restore here, I selected exactly the zip file. I'm not going to do it again because I don't know if this would ruin everything in Dialogflow if I overwrite the other stuff. But I hit the restore button and we could see that the intents that we have created in Botmock are now here, including all the training data, meaning all the training phrases, and also the expected response from the bot. Yeah, so this was the joke intent, where a user could say fun, jokes, or tell me a joke, and gets as an answer, why 6 afraid of 7. And then I also showed that Dialogflow comes out of the box with some integrations for iOS platforms, and one pretty easy one is here, the web demo. So if you enable this, turn the switch on, Dialogflow will more or less produce a dummy bot that knows your intents or is trained with your training data. This is exactly this guy here. So if I say howdy, he should say hey buddy or something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and this was more or less first step, conversation design, next step, import to Dialogflow, meaning implementation of the chatbot, and then the third step, and for us, more or less the important one, is doing the testing and training. And for us, as we are the leader in the industry for automated testing and training, of course, the test automation was important, and test automation is always based on test sets and test cases, and therefore the idea of our partnership was let's create an easy option to generate test cases, generate test data based on the Botmock project itself. And therefore also Botium has an open source repo that is called Botium exporter Botmock. Did the same here. I cloned this repo, then I CD'd into it, so it's the Botium minus, no, how's it called? Oh, exporter minus Botmock. And also in this folder, mandatory file is the .env file. It's hidden here, but if I open it, you can see it's this file, and the content here is exactly the same as in the Dialogflow exporter that Botmock is using, so that the user experience is more or less the same. You copy paste this file and you do an npm start here, and our exporter would also generate in an output file the necessary data. In our case, these are conversation files with a .convo ending and utterance files exactly for those intents we have designed in the conversation. And I did more or less the same. I generated a zip file out of this data, and then we come for the first time inside Botium Box. You can go to test sets and you just drag and drop this file here. So it's getting a bit tricky with all these windows open. I will rename it to not overwrite the other one. So let's call it, I don't know, Botmock webinar 10. You just do a drag and drop into our tested area, and Botium Box is doing all the magic in the background. So if I have a look in what we call, this is our visual test case editor, I can see that we have 3 utterance lists here with all the training data we have designed using Botmock, meaning for the joke intent, we have the training data fun, joke, and tell me a joke. For the welcome intent, we have all these hi, howdy, hello, and so on. And for the who am I, we have who are you, introduce, and so on. And those are the convo files here, those 3, meaning that these are the conversations or test cases that Botium will execute. And as you can see here, we will use this @_welcome utterance list to send to the chatbot, and we will do an assertion to get the reply, hey buddy, and to detect the intent welcome. So this is what is happening more or less by just doing this export from Botmock and importing here in Botium. You can test all your training data there. Yeah, just like that, just in a few seconds. I also showed then that out of the box, we are generating even webhooks here. If you are on a test project level, you could take this webhook, integrate it into your CI/CD pipeline, and call these tests. Yeah, if you want 2,000 times a day, this is maybe too much, but we see customers out there that are running 1,000 builds in a sprint, meaning in a week. So if you have a few thousand, which is pretty common conversations in a bigger test set, this ends up in pretty lot of tests. So this is what I showed, and then I started to show a bit on top what else is possible. I showed the option to use our live chat, for example, to record new tests, and therefore I was connecting to the bot we have created in Dialogflow based on the export of Botmock. I was just calling these interns, tell me a joke, and so on. And the bot was replying as expected, and I saved this whole thing as another new test set consisting out of conversation files, utterance files, and so on. And then the third step I was doing, I was even showing you another option to test, meaning full end-to-end testing by running now or doing the test execution really against this Dialogflow integrated web bot. And we also saw here the tests were really running end to end. If I go to latest test results and show you once again, we have seen here in the test results, the screenshot that these tests were really running here in a headless Chrome in this case. Yeah, then I was just trying to cover some other stuff that is very common in demos or in user requests that we have, like non-functional testing. I showed you some performance tests results here to give you an impression how a typically performance test looked like. Before I was showing you a stress test, if you remember. In that case, the load was increasing over time. Now I have chosen a load test. This you can see by the load that is constant for a given time. Also here we were doing serious testing, 400,000 users in parallel for 2 minutes. So pretty big bot. Showed you what we are measuring here during performance testing. Then I went a bit through security testing because this is also getting more and more important in the non-functional area. You have seen here that apart from just the typical conversation testing, we are also generating or showing you possible security vulnerabilities out there. I mentioned the security testing is based on OWASP. Yeah, and then the final thing was, as everything you have seen till now was based on conversation flow testing, I also showed you our NLP score or NLP performance testing. And this is covered by our, as we call him, Botium coach. And here stuff is a bit different. You get a lot of maths and statistics telling you about the health of your conversational AI, about the precision of all your training data and so on. I was going a bit through these graphs, but of course in a short session I cannot go here into details. I have showed you we have full training progress overview here. We have a full confusion matrix and so on. But therefore, if you want to go into details, I would really suggest to schedule a one-on-one with me by using, as I've shown you before, if you go to Botium AI, this is our website, you can find some infos here. Or if you want to get even more, you can hit the button docs and go to our wiki and read a bit of about our stuff. But if you want a one-on-one with me, just scroll down here on the side and use the book a demo feature. This is, as I mentioned, directly connected to my calendar. Yeah, and this was mainly it. As I said, I don't want to go too much into details because there are a lot of features included, more or less. We are covering, or we think we are covering, nearly everything out there when it comes to test automation for conversational AI. I mean, I can show you, we were just testing now Dialogflow, but if you have a look here on our connectors, so these are the technologies we are supporting out of the box to test. You can see that we have more or less everything that is common out there, starting with Alexa, of course, Amazon Alexa is there, BotKit from Microsoft, you have Facebook, you have Google Dialogflow, you have Watson, and so on. But you have also open source players like Rasa, or in general, smaller players. So all this stuff is there. We even have or are offering generic connectors to test your custom AI if you are implementing it, and so on. Yeah, so maybe as a last sentence here to really not go even more into details, our main idea is to make test automation for conversational AI fast and easy, take away as much as complexity and efforts from the development team, from the QA team, the business team, and so on as possible. And yeah, providing here a nice user interface, providing deep visual insights, as you can see it in Botium Coach, into your AI precision, into the health, into your NLP. And yeah, this is our story.
Thanks, Christoph. Thanks for that overview. So we do have one question from Juan. He's wondering what the advantage of generating the initial conversation and utterance test files from the Botmock specification is, instead of doing it from the exported Dialogflow specification. Can you generate more interesting test cases?
Yeah, so as I showed before, so let's start with the second question. So if we go to the Botmock webinar, I think this was our first one. Yeah, so this is just the initial import. To answer the question, can you generate more interesting ones? Of course. In our visual test case editor, you have here plus buttons just to add new conversation steps. Yeah, and I don't know if the bot is able to show you buttons. You could say something like, show me buttons here. And on the other side, assert to get buttons back. And for this case, we have out of the box asserters here, like for buttons, for cards, carousels, for generic JSON data, for all the NLP data. You can connect here to a SQL-based database and so on. Yeah, so more or less everything is possible here. As mentioned before, we have around about 100,000 users that were asking more or less for everything already, I guess. And if we can't cover stuff, you can still also add here your custom asserter component. But let's stay with our bot is showing us some buttons. You take this out of the box, custom asserter, and you just have to define more or less the button labels. Yeah, so let's imagine he answers with button one. I'm sorry, button one and a button two. Then you just do this here in clear text and hit close, and you can see it here is next conversation step. Yeah, easy as that. And following this example, you can add here, of course, everything. Yeah, everything that your bot will be able to cover, no matter how complex or how easy it is. And apart from that, we just did here more or less text-based testing initially and just more or less static one. Of course, we can deal with dynamic responses. We can deal with scripting memory, meaning more or less variables inside your requests that are going to the bot and so on. So all this stuff is covered here. It would just take too much time to show you all these things. Yeah, mentioned before, dynamic responses, of course, also. So typically test cases here, something like when you say hi, it's not a good idea to assert to get back also hard-coded hi or something, yeah, because most chatbots will reply here when the tests are running in the morning with good morning and in the afternoon with good afternoon and so on. So this test case would already fail, and therefore you could, for example, use our concept of utterance lists, yeah, by just using here, instead of good morning hard-coded, let's call it bot greeting utterance, and then you just say here, write a new test case or a new utterance list I need, and I just define here my bot underscore greeting at that I had before. And now I can add all the user examples that I need, yeah, like hi, and the next one is good morning, and the next one would be good afternoon, and so on. Yeah, so I think this example is pretty easy to understand, and then this test case won't fail anymore. Yeah. So this regarding the second question, and regarding the first one, why not directly take it from Dialogflow? Well, we had to bring it to Dialogflow first. Yeah? So I was designing the conversation in Botmock, and then I imported it from Botmock to Dialogflow, and then I just imported it to Botium. We would have not needed Dialogflow here. Yeah, it was just showing you and to be able to test here end to end. Yeah, but of course I could have just taken the exported Botmock project and imported in Botium Box directly. So, and yeah, maybe in addition, I think the question was also, does this make sense more or less just to test here based on the training data? Yes, it does, but of course you should add your own custom tests. So where it makes definitely sense, for example, is for the whole NLP score, NLP trend. Yeah. So here in Botium Coach, this is a very good starting point. You import just the Botmock project, take all the training data and generate tests out of it. You run it and you get a very first and quick impression of the health status of your AI behind. But of course, also here, you should add your own custom tests. But remember, I said before, it's all about making test automation for conversational AI fast and easy and taking complexity out. Yeah. So this is a very good starting point, as I mentioned. And yeah, just to tell you, we also have for various technologies, for example, for Dialogflow, we also have a conversation model downloader here in Botium Box included that would fetch the data from the conversation model of Dialogflow directly. But the thing is, of course, it's working way much better if we can go directly to the designed conversation here in Botmock. Yeah, so this is way much more stable. We're getting out better test cases, better test sets, and this is why this partnership totally makes sense. And just don't. Don't take this very short and easy example here too serious. Told you I'm not a conversation designer, but if we have just a look on the example that our developer who created the exporter did, here the model is a bit bigger. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice after a few talks already today. We also imported this into Botium Box, and if we have a look into this test set, you will see that it ends up already in way much more files that are auto-generated, yeah, with a lot of data inside. So it's about taking away the efforts to create this on your own. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Christoph. Obaid, I think you had a couple things to add, and while he's doing that, Christoph, I know you're sort of losing your voice. There's one more question for you if you want to just type in your answer to Satya. She asked, will this also be useful and work if the chatbot is running on mobile apps?
Yes.
But yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
So the end-to-end testing I have showed you before here, we were just going through a browser on desktops, but if you go here to end-to-end testing, and I quickly skip those first two steps, and let's imagine we have now imported the Botmock project and generated all the tests out of it. You could say now run on, I don't know, if I type here iOS core devices, or we've also defined this for Android devices. And what Botium Box will do is, behind these two tags, we have a connection to big device cloud providers out there, like Source Labs, like Perfecto Mobile, like Experitest, and so on. Or, by the way, you could also define here a connection to your own local Selenium grid if you have your own mobile devices or something. Yeah? And Botium Box will execute the tests there. And you, as a QA or automation engineer, you have nothing to do with Appium in this case. Yeah? This will be done by Botium in the background. You just import your conversation here from Botmock, and that's it. You hit here the Save and Start Test Project button, and the tests will be executed. I think behind the iOS core devices, we have an iPhone 12, 11, 10 with a few iOS versions defined. Yeah, and of course, this is also all configurable and so on. But to answer your question, yes, definitely we can. And maybe because I didn't mention this here on the dashboard, you can see our famous Botium socks. They are hell of cool. It's pretty easy to get them. We are sending them out for what we call our Botium champions. So if you contribute somewhere to our projects, open source and so on, maybe with some tutorial video or with some pull requests or whatever, you will become a Botium champion, and then you get these very cool socks.
Very cool. Thanks, Christoph.
You're welcome.
Obaid, did you want to say a couple last things before we wrap up?
Absolutely. First, thank you, Christoph, for that walkthrough. I think it was quite interesting to see how it all works together. And thank you everyone who asked really awesome questions. And I know a lot of people had this question around how complex the conversation maps can be in Botmock and what sort of use case would there be. Just wanted to add a little bit to it where we see a lot of value of adding a partnership with Botium is that a lot of our customers are designers who are building these experiences, and when they do a developer handoff to the development team saying, "Look, this is the kind of experience we're designing or building, and like go right ahead," the QA team does not have to wait till the entire development is finished. We have pipelines for you now to create and get a head start and be able to really extract all possible test cases with very much a few clicks and few things like that in setting it up in Botium, and leverage the Botium power to full capacity right from the get-go. And I think that sort of, as we make progress on Botmock side of things and focus more on conversation design, I think it will really add up and start building the robust handover and testing and just a very delightful experience in developing and building these experiences. So I'm really excited about this.
As am I. And Christoph, we're getting a lot of great feedback. Very much appreciative of the demo. People found it very informative. So thanks, everyone. And one last call out before we wrap up. Nicolette mentioned that for anyone who wants a recap, anyone who got a little lost, because I know that Botium has a lot of stuff, a lot of amazing stuff packed into the tool. She mentioned that they have a blog post about the exact steps that he went through, and they'll be publishing it in their social media channels next week. So go ahead and follow Botium, follow Botmock, and obviously we'll be retweeting all of their content as well. And we really appreciate you spending some time with us this Friday. So thank you, Christoph. Thank you, Obaid. Thank you, Nicolette. And thank you, everyone who attended. And we hope you test out the tools and find some value in them for your work or your projects.
Thank you, Brel. Thank you, guys. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for everyone. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.